this is 26th of June, Healing Toxic Relationships course. Here with myself, Na'Im Najieb, HT Lovejoy, here on vacation. Celia, Michaela, Shannon Joy. Welcome everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello, hello.
Yes, we are in part 2, which is understanding. Is anyone willing to read today?
I can read.
HT.
Yes.
I can read.
I can read also.
Oh, okay.
I can read too.
Full house, brother.
All right, sounds like
Here we go.
it's a literate crew, because that means it'll be fun, because reading is fundamental. So let's do it. So we'll start with this. This is an overview of what we're about to go through. It's only 15 pages or so. Understanding toxic relationships. In this part, we'll give you a brief but thorough understanding of how everything in part 1 works. You'll learn where the toxic relationships stem from, what is the mindset around abuse and attack, what are the 5 facts of love and fear, what are the 5 levels of creation, how do you create a toxic relationship, how do you create a healthy relationship, what is the critical question, and how do you transcend the victim mindset. Ready?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's begin. So before we continue, I saw you popped off for a second, Michaela. Anyone, you don't have to share any details if you don't want to, but how was it going through the homework, answering the questions for yourself yesterday or today when you did it? Michaela, can you respond if you're willing?
Yeah, sure. It was good. It brought up some stuff for me, but it was good to go through and just review really the notes that I took yesterday, because I knew all the answers to the questions. So it was mostly just kind of reviewing things that I related to yesterday in the charts.
Yeah. Okay. And Celia?
Yeah, I would say same as Michaela, ditto. Just except for the notes. But just, it was helpful to think about some of the ways I have allowed myself to engage in particular behaviors. And so I wanted to kind of identify some of those more specifically, and then also ways that I've allowed relationships to encourage unhealthy kind of behaviors myself. So it was good to kind of get very specific about certain things. Sometimes specificity can be helpful in that regard. So it was good. It's a good exercise.
Yes. Thank you. Because the examples were all very specific. How about you, HT? Anything?
Yeah, I've known of incidences where I've done a number of those things in terms of, well, I think we were talking about, what was it, the cold shoulder and that silent treatment and those types of behaviors, in the past. So my goal at this point is to catch myself.
Yeah, that's what it's all about being aware. So that awareness and recognition and remembering that you're innocent. So thank you all for doing that for yourself. I would say for me, the main thing of the shift in understanding is that when you realize that you have the power to change something and you're not being literally forced against your will, then no one's really doing anything to you that you're not allowing and accepting. Meaning you could deceive yourself into believing that, all right, well, they leave dishes in the sink every night, but tonight it's going to be different. right? You can say that to yourself every night, and it doesn't mean that it's gonna change or be different. And especially if you think just by being silent and nice, quote unquote nice, is gonna solve everything. You gotta realize that niceness isn't necessarily a quality that is always helpful when it comes to your self-love, because if you can't treat everything nice, meaning if you're cleaning up, you can't have the same kind of reverence for the dirt as you do for clean space. You can't say, oh, dirt, I just want to respect your space, I want you to be seen and heard here in my space. No, the dirt has to go, which means you can't be nice to it. You have to take a stand, and remove it. And
Thing they call go along to get along.
but that's something you sounds like you do when you're scared. Because who says that getting along is not having healthy boundaries? And like, look, if for example, boundary in my house, if somebody tries to break into my house, it's going to be a problem for them. It's going to get violent. And that means as long you can be my next door neighbor, it doesn't matter. If you break into my house, it's going to be a problem for you. So we can get along as long as you don't break in my house. It doesn't mean like, okay, well, I only broke into my house twice this week, so I'm gonna just go along with it. It's like we can get along, but it doesn't mean that it has to be based on that whole, again, that conversation about familiarity and comfort and respect. Just because someone's feels comfortable or familiar with a situation doesn't mean that there's respect there, or even respect for yourself, right? You allow someone to continue to walk all over you. Let's just say it was verbal abuse, right? And again, you can't stop anybody from letting words fly out of their mouth, but you can decide if you're going to give it audience, or if you're going to say, look, don't talk to me like that. But if you think, oh, they just have a lot on their chest, they got to get it out, it's not, they don't really mean it. Again, we can make up as many excuses as we want, but we don't have to go along to get along with it. We can find other ways to get along, and getting along doesn't exclude not being around each other either. I get along with a lot of people because we don't talk or meet up like that. That's why our relationship is so healthy. So recognizing that there's three types, and my uncle taught me this, Layla, he's like, there's three types of reactions that people have, and it's based on chemistry. Like when two elements come together, they're either going to come together and synergize, like they'll make a thing it's cohesive, it comes together, like you put a tea bag in a tea, and it makes the tea becomes whatever the tea bag was, right? Or you have two that just, okay, they separate, like you put oil and water even in the same container, and the oil's like, I'm over here, and the water's like, well, I'm over here. It's like, I don't care if we're in the same container. You stay over there, I stay over here. That's what they do. And some you put together and they combust, like gasoline and fire. You put those two together, you know what's going to happen. So those are pretty much the three types of reactions you get. And if you get in the type that you gasoline and the match, then you might want to keep those two things separate. And that's how gasoline and fire get along well, when they're not put together. So, or put together in a system where it's being used to fire off a combustion engine or whatever. But you get my point. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments anybody want to add before we start? All right.
Go along to get along stuff, or is always at someone else's detriment, in terms of that type of relationship.
Compromise and sacrifice. Yeah. Do what you don't want to do.
Right.
So while you're up, HT, will you read this page here in the universal principles of love and fear.
All right, T. We're in lesson number 6, the 5 universal principles of love and fear. Thank you. Mindset principles. To better understand toxic relationships, we must look at the universal principles that govern toxic and abusive relationships. We will also look at the universal principles that govern healthy relationships. What is the beauty of using universal principles as a foundation for your understanding? Universal principles are true in all relationships, easy to understand, easy to recognize, and easy to apply. In the clarity chart below, you will learn everything you need to know about toxic and healthy relationship principles. Pay close attention. And these are the FACTS, facts of love and fear. So someone's going to read one side, or I just do the whole thing?
I'll read the love side.
Okay. Relationship. A toxic relationship is based on fear or force.
Healthy relationships based on freedom.
Toxic relationship is attack, abuse, anger.
Healthy relationship is appreciation.
Toxic relationship is conflict and confusion.
Healthy relationship is communication, clarity. Another thing about conflict is that it's going to happen, but it's more specifically constant conflict. Constant conflict that has no resolution. So constant and repeated conflict that has not or will not be resolved, where the focus is on the conflict, not the resolution, not the clarity and communication. So it's not like there's something wrong because there's a conflict going on, conflict of interest, conflict of beliefs, conflicts of where we want to eat out tonight. It's more of a bringing clarity and resolution that is the point. And in fear, it's the conflict. Like, you ever know those couples or those families or those people that just anything becomes a conflict. You know, there'll be a beautiful day like today, and they'll be like, man, it was a beautiful day today, but I think yesterday was more beautiful. I don't know, I think today is kind of like maybe way more beautiful than yesterday. No, see, because you didn't go out yesterday, I was out yesterday, so I could tell you that yesterday was more beautiful. No, but see, you didn't really go out today like me. You was not by the water. I was by the water. And over there is where you really get to appreciate the full day. It's like, well, why you got to make it just because you learned how to swim early in life and I didn't? Now you got to bring up stuff about the water. That's the cheap. That's not even. That's cool. We talked about this. Why you got to bring? Like, I didn't say nothing about swimming. I just said the water, and that's why you still miss. You're not listening. You don't want to listen, and then it gets into stuff like that. They could take anything and make it conflict. Y'all, we all know these people. So let's not be that person. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, please continue, HT.
Okay, and fear.
I don't know if you were talking, but we can't hear you anymore. Maybe it's just me. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you. Y'all can't.
Okay.
I can hear you. HT, we didn't hear you for a little bit there.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not hearing you, HT. So Celia, can you pick it up from here, please?
Sure. So a toxic relationship is based on conflict and confusion.
Healthy relationship is based on communication, clarity.
A toxic relationship is based on trauma and triggers.
A healthy relationship is based on trust and truth.
And a toxic relationship is based on separation, shame, and suspicion.
A healthy relationship is based on sincerity. I was also going to add at some point cruelty on the C side with the toxic cruelty. Just yeah,
It's a good one.
unnecessary. Well, cruelty is always unnecessary, but just meanness and such. Can you continue, Celia?
Yes. So in conclusion, your relationship is either operating from love or fear. Are we clear? There are no in-betweens. It's easy to recognize when you are in a state of fear. How? Because you won't like how you feel emotionally. Advice. Before you do or say anything, ask yourself one simple question. Do I like how I feel right now? If you don't like how you feel, it's because your mind is in a toxic or fear-based state, meaning you're feeling fear, afraid, angry, attacked, ready to attack, conflict, confusion, trauma, triggered, separate, shameful, or guilty, overall feeling bad. If you're feeling this way, should you proceed with what you were going to do or say? No, just no. It will be unhealthy and toxic to your relationship and yourself. Take a moment and allow those upset thoughts and feelings to pass. Here is a principle to help you understand the importance of this lesson. Truth principle. Anything you say or do from a state of fear is toxic by definition, and it will be abusive. When in doubt, stop. Just stop. Now, let's take a step back and look at where abuse is born. Ready? Proceed to the next lesson.
Thank you. Before we continue, any questions or comments on that lesson? Very simple lesson. I'm sure anybody has heard Feel Good Talk has heard that before. Anything before we continue?
Just a quick thing. Oh, go ahead, Shannon Joy.
Oh, no, I was going to say I don't have anything. So please continue.
You said you don't have anything to say? I couldn't hear you.
Yes. Please
Oh,
continue,
okay.
Celia.
No problem. I know you're going to get into it later with the 5 levels of creation. And so maybe it's too early to say it, but in the previous page, on that previous page, where you say, where did it go? Sorry, hold on, wait. Here, let me look in my, it's where you said anything, if it don't like the way you feel, like below that, maybe it was the last thing on this. Okay, keep going. Where's the principle? Yeah, so again, you're gonna say this, so maybe it's too early to say it and we'll get to it, but anything you'd say or do from a state of fear is toxic by definition. If there's a way to come back to this, maybe after the 5 levels, to say anything you think, say, or do from a state of fear is toxic by definition, to get that thing that, that aspect of it when you get past the next section, just to come back to it maybe. But I was thinking when I read that about, thoughts, right? And toxic thoughts and where it begins. So anyway, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yeah, because it will be anything you think, feel, intend, say, do, all those levels. So yeah, by the time we get through this, then it should make sense to someone who's just being introduced to this. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Will you continue, Michaela?
Yes. Okay, lesson number 7, the 5 levels of creation. What are they? Often we only notice toxic behavior and abuse when it's already far along. meaning when it's already happened, after the fact, after the attack. In this lesson, we're going to teach you how to stop toxic behavior and abuse before it even happens, and not the toxic behavior in other people. No, that is impossible. You're going to learn how to stop toxicity and abusive tendencies in yourself. If you haven't noticed already, this course is about controlling the toxic behavior and abuse in you, not other people. This course was created to help you learn how to identify toxic relationships and abuse cycles, so you stop abusing relationships and stop using your relationships and other people to abuse yourself. To better do that, you must learn about the 5 levels of creation. Check out the clarity chart below. Keep going.
Yes, you can read this one yourself because it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. The 5 levels of creation, understanding where abuse attack is born and how it grows. Level number 1. Mental or thoughts, what it is, your thoughts, what you're thinking, how it's expressed, how you think, either with love or feel. Level number 2, emotional feelings, what it is, your emotions, what you're feeling, how it's expressed, how you feel, either loving or fearful feelings. Level number 3, energetic or intent. What it is, your energy and emotional intent, how it's expressed, projecting or extending what you feel onto yourself and others. Level number 4, verbal, self-talk and talk. What it is, your inner dialogue, what you say, how it's expressed, the stories and things you tell yourself and others. Level number 5, physical acts. What it is, your actions and your behavior, how it's expressed, what you do to yourself and to others, your behavior. Clear? Everything starts in the mind, at the thought or mental level. That includes healthy relationship dynamics and toxic, abusive relationship dynamics. You've been taught to ignore the first 3 levels of creation as unimportant. 1, the mental level, 2, the emotional level, 3, the energetic level. You've been conditioned to only identify the last 2 levels as abuse. 4, the verbal level, 5, the physical level. Why is that? Because those last 2 levels represent something you can see and hear. You can point it out clearly to everyone and say, look, that person was being verbally abusive. I even recorded all the horrible things they said, and I can play you the recording. That's obvious, right? But what about the first 3 levels? Can you record a feeling? Can you photograph someone's intent? Can you examine their thoughts under a microscope? No, and no. And further, can you even know for sure what someone is thinking, what they're feeling, what their intentions are? No, you cannot know for sure. You can only know this information about one person on earth at all times. Who is that? Yourself. Which is why the goal is not for you to change or regulate anyone else's behavior. The goal is for you to become aware of and correct the toxic tendencies and patterns in yourself, starting with your thinking. Trying to stop abuse when it's already at the behavior/physical level is like putting up your hand to stop a bullet that was fired at you. It's too late. The damage has been done. Here's a graphic example to help you visualize the creation process. In this example, the levels of creation will be played out using a gun with the intent to kill.
All right, I'll read this one with you. So if you just read the levels, I'll read the example.
5 steps of creation in action. Level number 1, mental.
So, number 1, you think about shooting someone for whatever reason.
Number 2, emotional.
You feel strongly that you will shoot them, and I'm going to add here, so you go get your gun.
Level number 3, energetic intent.
You load your gun with bullets while projecting your murderous feelings onto them.
Level number 4, verbal.
You tell yourself and them, I'm going to shoot you.
Level number 5, physical.
When you see them, you aim and squeeze the trigger. Clear? So, when did the attack start? When you physically squeeze the trigger? Yes or no? Anybody?
No.
No.
When you verbally threatened their life?
No.
When you loaded the gun with the intent to kill?
No.
When, oh, when, right? And although it didn't start here when you loaded it with intent, right? That still carries weight even in the legal system and injustice system we got going on here, where if you said you were going to shoot someone and you get apprehended with no weapon, you might get charged. But if you get apprehended with a weapon, even if you still didn't shoot them, will you get charged with a greater charge than if you didn't have a weapon on you?
Yes.
Right? Because the verbal threat is recognized as a threat, but then the intent, right? First degree, second degree, premeditated, right? It carries a greater weight in penal terms. So even the legal system, as jacked up as it is, recognizes that. We're going a little more deeper and looking at the emotional and mental origins of the attack as well. And that's what we'll explore in the next lesson, because that is the critical question that needs answering. Are you ready to answer it? Please turn the page. So let's see. Shannon Joy, are you able to read?
I am. Okay, lesson number 8, the critical question. When did the attack start? This lesson is all about learning where the attack abuse is born. Once you learn the truth about when the attack really starts, you can't unlearn it. You will be able to recognize and release attack from yourself before it ever escalates to a level where someone else is affected by it. Let's create a more interactive scenario to drive this lesson home. At the end of the scenario, there will be some critical questions for you to answer.
So
Scenario.
I'll read the scenario because it's insane and you sound too kind for us to take it seriously. So I'm gonna read this in the crazy voice and then you can pick up after, okay?
Alrighty.
Okay. So the scenario is that someone comes to you and tells you this following story. Story time. Yo, I think my partner's up to no good when they go out because they don't tell me where they're going. I start feeling insecure and I get suspicious. Feel like they're hiding something from me. I feel like they're hiding something from me. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I told myself I'll confront them about it. Last time they tried to go out, I confronted them. I asked them, where are they going? They said, none of your business. I got angry. I told them, you're not leaving until you tell me where you're going. They tried to leave anyway. You believe that? They didn't answer me and they tried to leave anyway. They tried to push past me. Well, first of all, I blocked the door, all right? But then they tried to push past me like they got the right to freely move about. And then they tried to push past me, so I grabbed their arm. And then there was a struggle, not getting into the details, but eventually they broke free and left. Got it? Keep the scenario in mind. Please continue, Shannon Joy.
Okay. Now you're up. You are a truth detective, and your mission is to work out the correct answers to the questions based on the knowledge you've gained so far. Get out your mental magnifying glass. On the next page, we have some critical questions for you about that story. You're also going to need your pen for this one. Ready? Turn the page.
Okay, so I'll facilitate, thank you, Shannon Joy. I'll facilitate this because it's just a question and answer. If you had the book, you would just like circle one of the yes or no's. If you could just come off of mute and answer yes or no, if you're willing. So the first critical question is, was there attack or abuse present in this scenario right here with that story?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
So here's the main critical question. It's when did the attack start? And we're going to break this question down into stages of the attack. Now, did the attack start when they grabbed their partner's arm? Yes or no?
No.
No,
Did the attack start when they physically blocked the door? Yes or no?
no,
And I'm going to give y'all a big hint here. And here's, remember, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remember the levels. And then let's go back and look at these questions. So you said it didn't happen when they blocked the door. They physically blocked the door. So did the attack start when they verbally threatened them?
No.
Did the attack start? And again, it's not if there was an attack. It's did it start when they decided to confront them? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Did it start when they started projecting their fearful feelings and suspicions, aka their intentions, onto them? Yes or no?
No.
Did it start when they started feeling insecure and suspicious? Yes or no?
No.
All right, moving on. So what do you think? Please answer all the questions before continuing. So if you answered yes to any of those main questions below, the main critical question just there, guess what? You would be absolutely wrong every time. Why? Because the attack started long before any words were spoken or physical contact was made. So when did the attack start? The attack started in their mind. Now, let's see. HT, are you willing to continue?
Yes, as long as y'all can hear me.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So continue here. How did it start in their mind?
Yeah.
Okay. How did it start in their mind? The attack started when owed them an explanation as to where they were going. Why is that thought an attack? Because that thought was born in fear. How do we know? Because insecurity and suspicion can only come from fearful thinking, not love-based thinking. Check the FACTS. Check the facts of love and fear in the previous lesson. You might be thinking, but it was just a thought. How can you attack someone with a thought? Easily. You do it every day to the same person. Who? You. That's who. You attack yourself when you think with fear. And fear leads where? Nowhere loving, nowhere healthy, that's for sure. You may not act on every fearful thought you have, but physical action is still 4 levels removed from the thought level. You will not condone and or tolerate abusive behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. So why should you tolerate abusive thinking? You shouldn't. Truth principle, what you do comes from what you think, which means you want to change your actions. What should you change first? Your mind. This lesson is about the 5 levels of creation. The main critical question being, where does the attack and or abuse start?
Thank you, HT. Before we continue to the breakdown, does everybody get this, especially this truth principle right here?
Oh, yes.
It's clear. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Because it's going to say as we go along, but I just want to reiterate, we are not taught to think this way. We're taught to think that it's okay as long as we're not saying or doing anything directly abusive, that it's okay to walk around like with the, you know, Frosty the Snowman or Snow Woman's shoulders, or walk around somebody doing the silent treatment, or feeling however you're feeling and saying when someone's like, "How, what's wrong? How you doing? You okay?" "Fine, I'm fine." That somehow just because you say the words "I'm fine," because you put on a crusty McClown smile on your face, that somehow that means, when that becomes, and especially when you know, like, you know someone is not okay, but they're saying they're okay, it feels sometimes like a little insulting, like Neil Armstrong from the moon could tell that you're not okay without any kind of Hubble telescope, just by looking at the earth and being like, what is that big dark cloud over New York City? Oh, your attitude. Okay, got it. Anybody could tell, but because you want to be like, fine, I'm great, how are you? You know, then we think that like that becomes worse than just saying, you know, I'm not feeling so great, I don't want to talk about it, right? That you is at least honest. And when we went through the 5 facts of love and fear, sincerity, which is saying what you mean, meaning what you say, truth, those are on the side of what? Love or fear? Side of a healthy or toxic relationship,
Healthy.
right? So nobody's saying you can't have an attitude, you can't be upset, you can't have your feelings and stuff, but at least tell the truth to yourself about it. And that's where we're going here. It's about, okay, well, if I'm not feeling okay, like that question earlier, do I like how I feel right now? Then I know automatically that if I did say or do something, that it would be out of a fearful state and it would be abusive, because the thinking in and of itself is abusive, as Celia mentioned earlier, which is what this lesson is. The goal is for it is to highlight. Is that clear?
Yes, indeed.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you continue with this one, Celia?
Sure. So here's the rundown once again. Using the principles you've learned and the earlier scenario you were asked about. The 5 levels of creation. Scenario version 1. The mind creates thoughts. A. Thoughts are either coming from a loving, healthy place, or they're coming from a fearful, toxic place. Where were their thoughts? Yes, where were their thoughts coming from in the scenario? Their thoughts were coming from a fearful, attacking place. They attack themselves by thinking their partner is up to no good. 2. Thoughts create feelings. Their fearful thoughts created fearful or suspicious and insecure feelings. Those feelings hurt them, not their partner. 3. Feelings create energy or intent. By focusing on and believing in those feelings, those fearful feelings made their energy toxic. They projected their own self-generated suspicions and insecure feelings onto their partner. Number 4, energy creates words, inner and outer dialogue. First, they told themselves a story about their partner that wasn't true. Then they decided they would confront their partner about it. Then they actually verbally confronted them about it. Then they issued a verbal threat. I'm not letting you leave until you tell me where you're going. This is where you have been taught to start noticing abuse, when it is directed outward at someone else. This is 3 levels late in the game. Like bullets fired from a gun, you can't take your words back. It never has to get this far. Simply take full responsibility for your thoughts and feelings. Number 5, words create action, physical level, what you do. Their first abusive action was to block the door. Their next abusive action was to grab their partner's arm when they tried to leave. You cannot take your actions back. You can always control your actions. There is no excuse for not controlling yourself. This is 4 levels late in the game. If you don't take responsibility for your actions or control your actions, it's simply because you didn't want to and weren't willing to. Clear? Continue or?
Yes, just to the end of the page.
Okay, so when did the attack start? We're going to expose the truth behind this critical question now, and also see if we can create a different outcome to that scenario, using honest questions to create new possibilities. please follow along on the next page.
Thank you. I'm just scrolling back up to find something I want to correct later on. It just passed me. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Just making a note. Excuse me. And all right. And Michaela, are you willing to read the next page?
Yep.
Whenever you're ready, Michaela.
Clarity questions on the critical question. When did the attack start? Did the attack on themselves start when they thought they had a right to know where their partner was going? Yes. Did the attack start when they thought that they had the right to control or question their partner's movements? Yes. Did the attack start when they thought that what their partner was doing without them had anything at all to do with them? Yes. Could that be why they started to feel insecure and suspicious? Yes. Could that be why they projected that insecurity and suspicion onto their partner? Yes. Are their insecurities and suspicions 100% made up in their own mind, self-generated? Yes. Could they have seen the situation and their partner in another way, a loving way perhaps? Yes. Could they have remembered the truth that love is freedom and that they and their partner are both free? Yes. Could they have remembered that they don't own their partner and their presence is a gift? Yes. Would it be more likely that they would have felt appreciation for their partner rather than insecurity and suspicion if they remembered that truth? Yes. Could they have then extended that feeling of appreciation to their partner in their heart and fill the space with loving energy rather than confrontational, fearful energy? Yes. Could they have then offered their partner appreciation, safe travels, and maybe even a hug instead of blocking the doorway and forcefully grabbing them? Yes. Makes sense now?
Yes. Thank you. Shannon Joy, will you continue?
All right. Yes, it does. Your next question may be, so how is this lesson practical? If a text starts in my mind, how can I stop myself from thinking fearful thoughts? That's easy. You can't. But that's good news. How? Because you don't have to stop yourself from thinking fearful thoughts. Fearful thoughts are going to spring up spontaneously and automatically for the rest of your life anyway. You don't have to stop them. And what do I do about them? You simply do this with them, fearful thoughts. You 1, notice, recognize them. 2, observe them. 3, take responsibility for them. And 4, release them. Here's what you don't do with fearful thoughts. Don't act like you don't have them. Don't blame someone else for them. Don't feel guilty for having them. Don't harbor them. Don't share them. Don't let them control you. Don't take them seriously. Don't make decisions from them. Don't speak from them. Don't act from them. Remember, thoughts lead to feelings. Here's a principle that will benefit you in all of your relationships for the rest of your life. Healthy mindset principle. Take full responsibility for your current state of emotional affairs, your feelings. Remember, no one has to know what you're thinking or feeling. It's not theirs anyway. You only reveal your thoughts and feelings in the last 2 levels of creation. Level 4, your words, what you say verbally, and level 5, your action, what you do physically. So the practical application is simple. First step, ask yourself if what you're thinking or feeling is coming from any of the 5 facts of fear. Fear, force, attack, abuse, anger, conflict, confusion, trauma, triggers, separation, shame, suspicion. You can cut to the chase very quickly by asking yourself this one question. Critical question to ask yourself. Do I like how I feel right now? If the answer is no, I do not like how I feel right now, Rest assured, you are in a fearful state. Then you move on to the second step. Step 2, stop, just stop. Do not speak from the fearful state. Do not act from that fearful state. Do not make any decisions from that fearful state. Recognize that your mind has been hijacked and be still. Sit with your feelings, be with them, but do not, under any circumstances, project your fearful feelings onto anyone else or make someone else responsible for them.
Thank you, Shannon Joy. Any questions up to that point?
I mean, I love all of that in the steps and the the process in terms of actually trying to stop yourself in these situations, because again, the common teaching that we get most of the time is I gotta give somebody a piece of my mind. And that piece is not a good piece.
Especially if it's the mental, emotional equivalent of what you would flush down the toilet, right?
About that. Yeah.
And so, literally, talking shit, don't do that. Just be silent if that's the case. So, yeah, we don't always. Again, you're free, and if no good comes of it, then that becomes the question. The question, and I wrote a book on communication, and the question I ask is, to make it even simple when you're dealing with another person, is what I'm about to say right now gonna make me feel closer to my partner by saying it to them, or by bringing it up, or by going back and forth with them about it? And the solution is appreciation. So if you're gonna out loud, outwardly say something, let it be something of appreciation. It's like, they could be saying all the crazy stuff in the world. You don't know what your ego wants to respond to it, but you could just say, that was a great cup of tea you made just now. Like, that cup of tea is brewed perfectly. I love it. Chamomile, I thank you for giving me that chamomile tea. They were saying a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, trying to bait you into an argument. You can find something to appreciate. All right. And that's only valuable to the other person when they also value appreciation over conflict. It's not about not having conflict. It's about valuing resolution over it. So where are we? We are at, okay, there, your feeling. Okay. So thank you, Shannon Joy. Yeah, this is the last part. Can you just finish this page, Shannon Joy?
Sure thing. They are, wait, just this page, or starting at the top, right?
Starting at the top, yes.
Okay. They are your feelings, not anyone else's. You did it to yourself, and trying to control an outcome or control someone's behavior because of how you made yourself feel is abusive. So stop, just stop. Stop abusing yourself with stories of emotional victimhood. You are not a victim, and no one can hurt your feelings. It's all an inside job. For more on that, turn to the next page for a special lesson on reframing abuse and victimhood. Ready? Take a deep breath.
Thank you. Take a deep breath is very good too. There was this model that had stuff. I was looking at it to use in my first book, but I ended up not using it because, first of all, it was not universal, it was someone else's, but it basically was an acronym for STOP, which the S stood for stop, like just stop. T, it was take a deep breath. O was observe your feelings, and P was play the piano or something. I don't know exactly what a P was, but maybe it had something to do with pastries, but it was something that was supposed to be helpful. But anyway, unless you're underwater, in most cases, a deep breath is a good way to go with things. So let's move to lesson 9, which is abuse and victimhood, reframing and refusing. You are not a victim. Nowhere in this course will you or anyone else ever be referred to as a victim. Why? Because you are not a victim. Oh, and I got a typo here. Can you continue from here, HT?
Right, T? Because you are not a victim.
Let me see my page 37. All right, please continue.
And you have not been victimized by anyone. Why do we take the position? Why do we take this position on victimhood? 2 reasons. Number 1, because it's true. You are not a victim. And number 2, because a victim mindset is not helpful to the healing process you are experiencing. Truth principle. Abuse and victimhood are mindsets. They are not identities. Just as abuse is a mindset, victimhood and being identified as a victim is a mindset. It is a mindset that does not empower you at all. It weakens you. It is a mindset born in fear. Unfortunately, many cultures victim of abuse, which is harmful to your psyche, in other words, mind. Why? Because they are unconsciously instilling a false victim identity in you, which is counterproductive to your healing. You may be thinking, what about everything I've been through? All the abuse I didn't ask for. How can you say I wasn't victimized? Easily. You are not a victim. You may have been directly violated, in other words, abused, but that doesn't make you anyone's victim. Well, what is a victim? A victim is someone who is powerless and at the mercy of another's will. Do you feel powerless? Do you feel powerful thinking of yourself in that way? What happened, happened. Nothing and no one can change that. But what can you change? You can change your mind about it. You can change your mind about being a victim of it. It's truth principle. Your circumstances are not your conclusion. You are not your past. Every day you wake up in a new day, a fresh start, another chance to make a different choice about how you choose to see yourself. Are you a victim or a powerful creator? Are you broken or healed and whole? Are you afraid and fearful or free and fulfilled? Remember, you can choose once again. You have made a choice right now to start over, to heal all the toxicity in your current relationships and vaccinate your new ones from becoming infected by it. We're going to give you all the tools you need to do just that. Ready for the final act? Don't stop now. Please continue. All righty.
All right, we got through that smoothly and quickly. It was just exactly an hour. We started like 5 after, so perfect. Now we went through a lot in this lesson and the last one. I do want to go through that again. Any questions, comments at this point?
I like the vaccination and building your immune system.
Yes. The last part, meaning yesterday's whole class was about that, because it's about recognition. Before you can deter anything, you got to detect it. So if you don't know what it looks like, sounds like, how it's coming through, then you can't stop it. It'll get through your security every time. So yeah. Anything else about?
I still love the way that it's not solely statements, but that there are questions throughout. I just think that's a really good way to continue to engage people. Not that, we're not paying attention to the statements, but the direct questions to us make us think a little bit differently than solely a statement. So I appreciate that.
Right, like this part, it could be clarity on the critical question, not the question. It could say, here's where the attacks start. It started when on themselves, when they had the thought that they had the right to know where their partner was going. It started when they thought they had the right to control or question their partner. It started when they thought their partner was, what they was doing without them had anything to do with them. That's why they started feeling insecure and suspicious. That's why they projected insecurity and suspicion onto them. And their suspicions and insecurities are 100% made up. When you ask it as questions, it's just like, think about it. Could it start when they thought they had the right to know, when they really didn't? Could it have started when, they thought they had the right to control a question? Could it start when they thought that they were doing something that had something to do with them and it didn't? So it does engage the mind in a different way. It's just another way of delivering information. So it's more like, instead of placing something on someone's lap, like, take this is what it is, you hold it out to them and say, could you take a look at this? And maybe you want to pick it up from my hand, or maybe you don't. But could you take a look at this? That's the way. And when someone feels like they have a choice in accepting it, and you're not just telling them what it is, and it actually clears their own critical factor, meaning their own thinking mind, because the critical question, this whole section is about critical thinking as well, which we're not taught how to do in most cases, unless we go seek out that specific skill. But it's something that comes from asking questions. Critical thinking comes from asking critical questions. Sloppy thinking or reactive thinking comes from just accepting what you've been told and programmed and never asking questions. Because you could accept what you've been told, but then still have a mind or eye open to, well, maybe that's not the only way this went. Maybe there's another story. Maybe there's another angle to this. Maybe what I'm being told is not everything there is to know. Even though I accept what I'm being told, I'm also open to something different. And by asking questions, you're indirectly assisting people with the critical thought process. And kind of like because everybody wants to be able to think better, make better decisions, but when you're forcing them, it's like, come on, even if it's something that's good for you, nobody likes to be forced for anything, like medicine or anything. Even thinking about a child that's learning how to walk, you don't just wake the child out of bed like it's physical therapy, like, all right, baby, get up, it's time to learn how to walk, it's been 6 months, you should be off your knees by now, get up, up, let's move out. And then baby's like, wait, like, stop complaining, recruit, get on this floor and start. And then you start pushing them to walk, and they fall down, like, get up off of that floor and start walking. At a certain point, they will try to walk, and they're gonna fall, and they're gonna try to walk again. And instead of forcing them or attacking them for trying, you can assist them, hold their hands, let go for a second, hold their hands, let go, and then the let goes will be longer and longer and longer and longer until one day you don't have to hold them at all. You can assist them though and guide them, but it's better than getting them out the bed, get up out of this crib. It's time for you to take this walk. We need to go to the store. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. So that's what this is the equivalent of. Any other questions or comments on any of these parts? What we went over was basically the 5 levels of the 5 facts, the 5 levels of creation. We went over what creates a toxic relationship, the critical question, and the victim mindset. Anything on any of this? Anybody want to review?
I think it's understated in terms of how fast all this happens at one time. Like you said, it's like, in a matter of seconds, in terms of which you can run through all of these facts of creation real quick. I mean, in those 5 steps.
Yes, exactly. And you can make a decision just based on, like, someone's like, let me show you their phone. You see a text message, and then you automatically switch from loving to fearful thinking, and then decide that, you know what, I'm gonna confront you about this. I'm gonna attack you about this. I'm gonna whatever about this. In a moment, it could be in a moment or less. This happens. So it is understated that even though we're drawing this whole process out over a course of an hour, all this right here on your screen happens like that, one in a second or less. It can, right? Or you could start building up momentum. Like you can, again, self-generate some story about something or someone and start thinking it, then start feeling it, and then start saying what you're going to do, and then start talking to yourself about it, telling stories, and then you start talking to them about it, and then it becomes this whole production that you act out, literally. So you're right.
Yeah, so horses out of the barn.
So
I just really appreciate how clear everything is, and how I do feel like I can talk to, like, for instance, my 19-year-old nephew about this. Like, when he tries to pull the whole victim card in his relationships, because he's like young and having his first like encounters romantically, and he's feeling like all kinds of crazy stuff that he brings to me. And like, I think I can use this as a helpful guide to, like, I don't know, help remind him of his freedom, and that everyone else that he wants to be with is also free, and that he's not a victim. So yeah.
So how would you do it? How would you present it to him?
Right. First, I would start with the mindset of love and fear, because first he needs to be aware that there's only 2 thought systems that exist, and to know when he's operating from either. And then once that is digested and processed,
Are you breaking up, Shannon Joy? You said once that's digested and processed, then what?
Sorry, my internet is shaky here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
I can't hear you though. Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you. Well, welcome, Salima, I meant to say. So you came in.
Hi, Salima. Hey.
Thanks for joining. So we finished 2, so I guess we can just talk about, I'll just say what we're going to go over next lesson, which is part 3 and solutions, which is the purification. And Shannon Joy said her internet is shaky. She was going to say once he understands through thought systems, I take him down to levels of creation. Okay. Yeah. And I would also add that examples are good, relatable examples, and something that can never be said too many times is those last two levels, which are what? What are those last two levels, 4 and 5? Anybody?
Verbal and physical.
Yeah, those have to do with interpersonal, interactions, and they can't be taken back. So even if again, let me just say this, we're not gonna get to the point where we're never gonna have fearful thoughts. That's gonna happen. But if one day we was out here thinking fearful thoughts and we would just reach for the nearest thing, you got a plate and you would just be, oh, I'm so upset, throw the plate against the wall. That's the thought. I mean, that's what was I using? I was using an example with the gun, right? So if we go back to this, hold on, this is a good time for this one. So with the gun, remember the way that worked, that was the last part was you squeeze the trigger. Then means you have your finger on it. Then you tell them you're gonna shoot them. Then you put the bullets in the gun. You go get your gun out of the safe. Then you think about, so if you already at the place where you firing shots at people, first, then we will ask you, all right, so could you, when you get to the point where, all right, next time when you pointing the gun at them, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm pointing the gun at them. All right, let me not do that. And then one day, you're going to be like, so upset, loading the bullets in the gun. Like, wait a minute, why am I loading these bullets? Oh, because I was going to shoot somebody because of how I feel. Let me stop doing that. Then one day you're going to, before you even load the bullets, you're going to find yourself with a gun in your hand. You're like, why do I have this gun in my hand and these bullets in the other hand? Or why do because I'm about to attack somebody. And you're like, okay. Then one day you'll catch yourself before you even go to this, like you'll be opening the safe, putting in putting the code in, ... And then you're like, why am I putting this code in? Oh, to get the gun to go so-and-so. Then you're like, oh, let me stop. Then one day you're going to find yourself storming off. Like, what did you say? You're still not home? Traffic my ass. You rushing over to the safe to get that, to put the code in. Like, wait a minute. Why am I going to this safe? Oh, yeah, to get the gun, to put the bullets, to tell them I'm going to shoot them, and then aim, and then put my finger on the trigger and then fire. Let me step away from the safe. In that way, when they get home, they don't have to see a gun. They don't have to dodge bullets. They don't even have to see a gun raised at them. They don't even have to, at that point, see you with a gun loaded at your side. Like, why you have that gun? Why was traffic so bad? I checked the traffic reports and it wasn't 15 minutes, right? It's like, then you'll be at the point where they come back and they don't even see a gun in your hand at all. And catch you loading, like, why are you loading bullets in the gun for? Right? Because all these things, like, somebody can catch you doing. But at some point, we're going to get to the point where it's like, all right, before I even get to that safe to attack you, I'm going to be like, take a deep breath. Okay, I'm innocent. They're innocent. This is just a feeling. I don't have to use this information or this feeling to decide how I'm going to handle this situation. I can try another way, make another decision. That's the point of this. Tomorrow, we will deal with the solutions, which are the lessons of standards and boundaries, knowing the difference between those, setting clear standards, setting clear boundaries, communicating clearly your boundaries, using love and correction, enforcing boundaries, how to do that, taking full responsibility, and we'll probably get up to there. The last day, we'll probably get to all of this other stuff like self-empowerment and the communication 101, because there just won't be enough time to get through that, more than likely. So we'll do that. So your homework for today is just to take whatever notes, review whatever notes you may have taken today, whatever stood out to you, what resonated with you about this lesson. Please mentally review it please pull out the table in your mind and sit down and set a place across from yourself at this table for the thoughts and lessons you learned. Serve that lesson some food, let it sit down, talk to it, be like, all right, so I was thinking about the 5 levels of creation, have a nice conversation with it, you know, and afterwards ask it to go do the dishes, or even better yet, just use the paper plates and plastic forks. That way you won't have an issue when it's time for you to get up off of this mental table and mental imaginary discussion in your mind with today's lesson, that you won't be mad that it imaginarily didn't wash the imaginary dishes. So that's your homework for today. Any questions up to this point? Thank you all for joining, by the way, and we will call this the end of the recording of day 2.